How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Today I'm writing solo. Idris got a little tied up with some things, but I'm still going to move forward with our show today. This is directly related to the situation in New York regarding Saquon Barkley, talking about the potential contract or lack thereof, and if the Giants are making a good investment if they give Saquon Barkley a contract. We're going to talk about how Daniel Jones's situation will directly correlate and affect the situation with Saquon Barkley. We are also going to speak about potential candidates to possibly replace Saquon Barkley if indeed he moves on to a different team once the free agency period begins. Got some football news today. Carson Wentz was released by the Washington Commanders. They're going to save over $27 million by making that move. So definitely a smart move on their part. Watching the Commanders this past year, I believe Ron Rivera made a fatal mistake of giving Carson Wentz the job over Taylor Heineke, and I do believe that cost them a playoff spot. We're also going to talk about two running backs who are looking at potential franchise tags, and I'm going to speak on who I believe has the advantage at the negotiation tables, whether that be Saquon Barkley's camp or the New York Giants. The motivation for me doing this show today is as a fan, I know what it's like to absolutely adore certain players. You know, you buy their merch. Those are your guys, so to speak. And I totally understand that. But, you know, kind of just going through my fair share of Giants pages that I catch on social media, I've just seen like a massive panic amongst the fan base of the potential of losing Barkley. And it kind of annoys me to a level because I believe that a lot of fans do not look at the big picture or what teams really do need to do to build a team the correct way. I'm going to start with revisiting Saquon Barkley's draft class, first and foremost. The Giants ended up with their first two picks in that draft, getting Barkley, taking him second overall, which in today's NFL is very high to take any running back. They followed that with a pick, getting a guard, Will Hernandez. Hindsight's always 2020, and I understand that. And when you make a pick in a particular draft, there's no way to absolutely tell how the career is going to pan out. But looking back at it, the Giants could have had Quentin Nelson out of the University of Notre Dame, who is currently the best guard in professional football. Oddly enough, the Giants going into this offseason are still having issues at the two guard positions. Now you factor in Barkley. It's been a mixed bag. NFL Rookie of the Year, 2018. 2019, a hair over 1,000 yards on the ground. Good year, not as good as his rookie campaign. 2020, pandemic season, he had the horrific knee injury, missed 14 games. And then you take it into 2021, still lingering effects of the lower extremity injury, which is common with players that have those kind of injuries. I always say you're not truly back until 2 years after a bad injury like that. And this year, in a prove-it year, he had his best year since his rookie year. But I will say, over the first 5 years of Saquon's career, his best year is still 2018, talking about his rookie year. Anyone who watches Giants football and knows what the Giants were about this year, it was, I guess you could say, making lemonade out of a lot of lemons, you know, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody that played on the Giants this past year, but quarterback Daniel Jones definitely did not have his fair share of weapons. And while I do think that Barkley is a dynamic talent, and yes, indeed, he is my favorite player on the current Giant roster, I do believe that some of his production is a little top heavy because of the fact that there are a lot of checkdowns involved, that you're constantly stretching him to the max. Anyone that follows the history of the New York Giants, and as my friend Quentin loves to say, history is cyclical, we always had a backfield committee. Whether you go back to 1990 season Rodney Hampton was our starter going into the playoffs. He suffers an injury in the Bears game. O.J. Anderson, who was a proven veteran, that was Hampton's rookie year, wins the Super Bowl MVP, but you had multiple backs that got you there. 2007, you had Reuben Drones, you had Brandon Jacobs, you had Ahmad Bradshaw. Three-headed monster. Drones went down during the season. The other two, Bradshaw and Jacobs, helped carry us to a Super Bowl. The rushing game was a big part. And the reason I mention that, this is a year removed after Tiki Barber, who, like it or not, is the greatest running back in Giants history, chose to retire prematurely. You look at this year's Philadelphia Eagles, this year's Kansas City Chiefs, the two teams that played in the Super Bowl. You have a rookie running back in Isaiah Pacheco, who coming into the year wasn't a starter. And in Philly's situation, in addition to Jalen Hurts rushing the football, you had a three-headed monster at running back consisting of Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, and Kenneth Gainwell. Ultimately, I think what I'm trying to say here is that I think the building a team the right way is when you start with the offensive line on offense. When the Giants drafted Barkley, they did not have the pieces in place, and they have gradually gotten better. I was triggered when I saw a particular post on a particular Giants page today where a certain Giant fan was basically calling Joe Shane, GM of the New York Giants, a penny pincher, and really going over just what seemed like bitching, moaning, complaining, and a huge aggravation that the Giants are afraid to spend money. I think what some fans lose sight of is that in today's NFL, making an investment on any running back where the contract ends at the age of 30 is risky business. Saquon Barkley already has a knee injury. He has missed 21 games since his rookie season. He's had 12 touchdowns rushing over the course of the last 3 years. That averages out to over 5 games missed a year, and the last 3 seasons, only 4 touchdowns per year on the ground. I think we can find that production elsewhere. I want to make this clear. By no means do I want the Giants to move on from Barkley, but I don't think the Giants should panic and throw him a huge bag. And while we talk about a huge bag, I'm going to get into why the Daniel Jones contract negotiations can determine the future of Barkley here. Daniel Jones fired his agent not too long ago. I alluded to this on a previous show. And I also believe that not necessarily a power play. There have been conflicting stories that have said Jones is expecting north of 40 million, possibly 45. If Daniel Jones is to take, say, per year, 36, 37 million, I think it gives the New York Giants the ability to still keep Barkley. I think the way to keep Barkley is not necessarily with the per year contract. During the bye week of this last season, the New York Giants offered Saquon Barkley a 12.5 per year deal. Barkley did not take the deal. He didn't want to take the deal. He felt he was getting lowballed. I said it on a previous show. I think the sweet spot is no more than 13.5 per, and I think you have to have guaranteed money that is close enough to 30 million up front. But when I think about the importance of quarterback versus the importance of running back in this league, this regime that is currently running the New York Giants built up Buffalo, the offense, Josh Allen. Josh Allen was a project quarterback, and Brian Dable gradually turned him into a perennial Pro Bowler and a perennial MVP candidate. I'm not insinuating that that's Jones's future, but I definitely think it's feasible given the fact that he has finally made that jump, winning a playoff game, making NFL history in his playoff win against the Minnesota Vikings. Ultimately, the point to be made here, in a quarterback-driven league, I believe that the quarterback position dwarfs the importance of the running back position. In the 1990s, teams built and drafted running backs very early. Running back is very, very replaceable. I think Saquon Barkley, the things that work against him at the negotiation table, kind of simple. Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard are probably being franchise tagged by their current teams, and why it helps the Giants. Essentially, there's a lot of running backs that are available that are going to give you comparable results to a Saquon Barkley. It's been proven time and time again that you do not need a superstar running back to win in this league. You need competent running with a very good O-line. That has always been a time-proven formula in all levels of football. I believe that sometimes you got to dive into some of the numbers. I'm a huge Saquon fan, but he has not had terrific games against the Philadelphia Eagles nor the Dallas Cowboys over the course of his career. And those are our two chief rivals that we constantly compete with. We finished third in the NFC East this year and are definitely trending upward. But when I look at the list of guys right here, these are potential candidates to replace Barkley. You got Damian Harris of the New England Patriots, Jamal Williams, who had a great year in Detroit, Kareem Hunt, who's a change of pace back that could be paired with a power running back. You got a Miles Sanders, who just fell short of a Super Bowl. David Montgomery out in Chicago. Jacobs and Pollard almost guaranteed will get tagged by their current teams. And one of those teams is the Dallas Cowboys. You can ask the Dallas Cowboys fan base how they feel about the team spending too much money on Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah, 13.5 is fair. I definitely agree with you. Absolutely, most definitely agree with you there. I don't see a scenario where paying more than that even remotely makes sense. The Daniel Jones situation is interesting. Getting it back to there for a moment. The Deshaun Watson deal reset the market. I don't think Daniel Jones is truly going to get 40. I think it's looking like 35, 36, 37, anywhere in that neighborhood. I've mentioned on previous shows to keep Barkley if they do end up giving Daniel 40 or a couple of million under 40. You may have to explore the possibility of trading Leonard Williams. He's a helpful football player, definitely not worth the contract, in my opinion. But I think what you do there is you trade him to a team that's contending and you get back a lower level draft pick because a team is not going to match that big of a contract with a big draft pick. It just doesn't work like that in the NFL. Williams is a former number 6 overall pick originally by the New York Jets. But I'm just going to throw a couple of scenarios here. I think of a guy like a Kareem Hunt. He's done wonders alongside the aforementioned Nick Chubb. From that, Chubb was in Barkley's class. Kareem Hunt is a very good pass-catching back. If you were to pair him with, say, a Bijan Robinson, who potentially could be available at pick 24, you got power and you've got a finesse guy. I just don't think that in today's NFL, it's conducive to consistent success to beat up running backs. And the trend in the NFL, while I don't think it's fair, is that basically running backs get run to the ground. And then when their rookie deals are up, teams try to get cute and move on from them. It's not fair, but it's the nature of the beast and the nature of the business. The rules have dictated that this is a pass-happy, pass-first, pass-always NFL. And that is why Daniel Jones is more important than Saquon Barkley. And to be fair, while I love both players, and yes, I will admit Barkley is my favorite Giant, of the two of them, if we're going to be completely unbiased, who is more likely to get injured, the running back or the quarterback? We know who the NFL protects with the rules. And like I said, Barkley has a little more of a scary injury history. Whatever the Giants and Barkley's camp decide to do, I think Barkley's going to still have 2 very good years no matter who his new employer is. You take a team like the Chicago Bears, who have the most cap space in the NFL, or even a team that has the next most in the Atlanta Falcons. These are 2 teams that can legitimately throw the bag at Barkley and make it a tough decision for he and his camp. I don't think resetting the market completely will be the contributing result of why Barkley makes a deal with his New York Giants or if he moves on. I think it's more so than anything about feeling like you're getting the proper respect when you go to these negotiations. Because sometimes, unfortunately, when these things happen, there are some hurt feelings, and it's kind of unavoidable when it comes to these kind of things. But I look at Brian Dable's previous offense in Buffalo. That is not an offense that featured an all-world running back. They had a little bit of a committee. I'm not saying that they wouldn't want to improve on that. Everybody wants to get better at every position. But when I think about the needs of this team, you're talking about we need 2 guards. You want to explore getting another corner opposite of Adoree Jackson. You need more athletic linebackers that can cover tight ends. And you need a number 1 wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is a possibility. He's on a deal that is kind of outdated. And he also doesn't have a no-trade clause. There are solutions. You could get a Brandon Cooks. You could get a Robert Woods. There are solutions for the Giants to get better. Giants already made a smart move by bringing back Isaiah Hodgins, who was a total steal off of Buffalo's practice squad. So there is definitely potential for the New York Giants to get better. Oddly enough, they could even bring in a Devin Singletary who could reconnect with Brian Dable. In the end, I do think Saquon Barkley will be retained, but I think it's going to be responsible. And I do think the reason why Barkley is going to hit free agency first is because I think Barkley's going to realize that the market for him is not as good as he may have anticipated. And when you look at all these names on the bottom of my screen, that is a contributing factor as to why the Giants still might be his best play. He's very marketable. He loves being in the city. The Giants are an iconic franchise, and he is one of the faces of the NFL running backs. Yeah, lots to unpack here. And it's so funny because normally as a Giants fan, we haven't been good for a while up until this year. So when we go into these off seasons, I'm usually like super excited about, who can we sign to get better and who can we draft to get better? We're actually a pretty good football team right now that is working out some kinks. And I'm more concerned about this particular offseason than I've ever been in probably a decade. And it's so funny because I'm worried about losing players. It is what it is. At the end of the day, you worship the logo, not the name on the back. But, you grow an attachment to certain athletes that you definitely admire. Saquon Barkley checks off all the boxes there. He's a great young man. He's a hell of a leader. And he's someone that I ultimately hope the Giants do keep. But when I see certain fans just not making any sense and valuing a running back over a quarterback in the year 2023, I do not understand it on any level of how anyone thinks that should ever take precedent over the quarterback position. Quarterback-driven league. Say no more. And as I already alluded to, the Dallas Cowboys are franchising Tony Pollard and are probably going to drop Ezekiel Elliott. There's no more guaranteed money there. But they were kind of tied up with that situation. And to play devil's advocate, even if Jones gets more than some Giant fans thinks he should get, have to understand something. If he becomes a superstar over the course of the next 4 years and he's not locked up, 3 to 4 years down the road, the market's going to explode even more and he's going to be more expensive and it's going to be even harder to keep him. And I am certainly not Nostradamus and I cannot tell the future. But I strongly believe that Daniel Jones will be a superstar in this league. Is he going to be Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen? I'm not 100% sure about that. But even if his ceiling is that next tier of quarterbacks, the Giants definitely have a possibility to compete for Super Bowls. And I most definitely think that they could do that. Before I get out of here, got a bit of a funny story. Came out to visit my mother. Been taking some time off work, doing a lot of yard work, just getting some things done. So visited my mom and my stepdad, helping out my stepdad for a little bit on his motorcycle. And I asked my mom, I was like, man, I haven't eaten today. You hook me up a sandwich or something? And come in to find out that my dog Cookie like legit devoured my food. And I was like, damn, you're not like Nunu. It was kind of a ballsy move. So I just thought it was funny, non-related to the sports world. But it was very, very funny. My dog, or their dog, but, kind of like my dog too, definitely a character. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, and also make it a point to check out our show we did last night talking about the new rules in Major League Baseball that I don't think are sitting right with too many baseball purists, or especially the players. I think baseball is starting to gradually lose their minds. Rob Manfred needs to give up that seat, get a real a real commissioner in there. Until next time, I am Richie, and we will be back soon with our MLB divisional previews as well as our March Madness shows. Look for our updates on our Facebook page and our Instagram. Take care and have a good night, everyone.